Welcome to the Peace Bridge Talk Show, Jacia.
I am so delighted to be here with you, Amrita.
My
Thank you.
pleasure too. My pleasure too. So, dear listeners, we have Jacia Kornwise, who's an embodied soul coach, a transformational experience facilitator, and a TEDx speaker. Join us today in our episode. How exciting it is. Jacia, super happy to have you here with us.
I feel so lucky to be invited. Thank you.
No problem at all. Jacia, we are already thrilled to know how did you become a embodied soul coach? The title itself sounds so different.
That is hilarious and a great question. So I since I was 19, I started off on a journey of knowing that it was going to be my path to help facilitate transformation and healing because of some of my own experiences I had. It just launched me off early. And I went to train as a therapist in graduate school at the California Institute of Integral Studies and practiced as an intern at a full 30-person a week private practice, ran groups, loved it. And honestly, when it came around time to get licensed and stuff, at that moment in my life, I knew that there were other pieces I wanted to develop. And at the time, it didn't feel like I could be both a therapist and a movement teacher and doing some hands-on work with people and studying all the different pieces of things I wanted to. So at that time, I got a coaching license and a spiritual minister's license and worked in that way, and then pursued a shadow coaching experience with Debbie Ford and her transformational experience facilitation. I don't know what it was at the time, but it was a school of that. And that was amazing because it taught me things and skill sets that I needed, that my clients and myself were benefiting from by going into the places that regular psychotherapy didn't really touch, and helping me to be more of a guide. And that opened me to more to coaching. But all the while, I had a deep passion for movement and breath and somatic based work. So I was also training in that. I certified as a 5 rhythms teacher, and I developed my own thing called the Rhythms of Acceptance. I worked with various breath work, holotropic and rebirthing groups, and started training and certifying and working with people in that way. And everything just started getting all together. And I kept feeling like there was not one way that felt right for me to stand behind. And every time I would go behind a label of a group, it just didn't quite feel like it wanted to offer the wholeness. And I realized what I was really about was wanting everyone to get embodied with their own unique mission. And so not one mission ever fit for me. And I thought, well, an embodied soul, that is someone who lands in their body and clears out what's not theirs and gets the information that they uniquely are meant to have. And that's what I wanted to help people transform into, is their own unique being.
I love that. I love that. It's amazing when you said embodying that true soul, understanding that real person or that unique person, you said, right? How
Yeah.
did you go about finding your purpose that led you to become this amazing embodied soul coach?
My, what a question. Woo! So, gosh, I mean, it's funny, even as you're saying unique, I was like, oh yeah. And then there was, aspects of studying mindfulness and meditation. And, my path was impacted by many, many things. But I would say one of the main beginner moments was when I was 19. My best friend, only sibling, Robbie, was he was 17, and we were just so connected, and he was killed by a drunk driver. And that loss opened a lot of portals for me into so much more grief, beyond grief, heartbreak, shattering of identity, my religious structures, opening portals into cognition and knowing that and transpersonal realms. it kind of threw me on a journey. Let's just put it that way. There were other pieces already trickling in for me to move in those directions, but that sent me from, I was going to be teaching writing and literature in college to shift into, I'm going to California to go study at a really alternative and amazing transformational school called California Institute of Integral Studies.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear about the loss, and I know how hard it would have been to rise up from that grief and then move forward to take this direction towards your purpose. That would have been a big step. Who do you think was your guide or mentor who helped you to find that purpose?
Well, there's so many ways to answer that. In many ways, my brother's spirit was a huge guide for me for almost 30 years, guiding me back ultimately to myself, which was a journey in and of itself. But I had many teachers, embodied teachers along the way, but I wouldn't say that there's any one. I mean, there wasn't anyone that threw me. My dreams spoke to me. I had my own messages telling me things from the beginning.
Wow. Wow. So there were a lot of teachers, and at the same time, your brother's spirit and your own dreams and
Yeah.
intuition guiding you throughout
In
the.
fact, this is kind of an amazing story. When I'd never heard of this uh, place for graduate school, and I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at University of Michigan, and this was the time where the New Age was opening, and there were bookstores and crystals and all those fun things that I was like, opening my brain to for the first time. And I read this magazine about Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and it led me to a book. And as soon as I started absorbing some of that, I started dreaming, and I was told about that this was the school from them, and it was their lineage. And so when I reached out to this school after learning about it, going online, getting brochures, talking to people at the school, they ended up having me come out for an interview. And I was the youngest person they'd ever accepted there at that time period. I think it opened the door for a lot of my friends to start heading over there. Because they wanted people with more experience, but the stories I was sharing, they were like, oh, you are guided here. You're meant to be here. So that it was kind of like that. My life's had a lot of those kind of strange things that I didn't even know were possible would happen.
So beautiful to hear, and it's very much inspirational also, because I know for sure it wouldn't have been as easy journey as you're sharing it with us. It sounds like it was super smooth, but I know for sure.
That was only the beginning. That was only the beginning of the journey. I have had many chunks along the way, and that's part of the movement for, I kind of went out into the spirit and into meditation and awareness and guides, and then I had to get into my body because of other kinds of traumas, and that's, and then landing in the body using movement and breath in assistance with learning about our inner guidance, our inner information system, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness and awareness practices. That combination is really where I've landed. But it's been a journey to go through all that, and each step of the way has been fantastic. So yeah, I mean, and very challenging. It's true. I'm telling you all the shiny. It hasn't been shiny. It's been very grueling at times, and had many moments where I did not know if I would go on. Many of those.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for
Resilience of the soul. It's the resilience of something saying there's got to be a gift here. There's that continual looking for the gift, and how do I give back? Because throughout the grief, grief breaks our heart open, and only through tremendous grief can we actually access like that tremendous appreciation for life and the small joys, the simple things, and just connection. Like, it's so great to talk to someone like you and to have life bring us together. Like, I celebrate that so much.
Same here. It's a pleasure, and I'm grateful that I'm able to talk to someone like you, Jacia, who has gone through really hard times, but has come out of all of that, and you're serving the world as an embodied soul coach. I would love to know, for our listeners who are struggling with trauma or struggling with any kind of past experiences that have left them in a place where they have lost their identity, what would you advise them to do as an embodied soul coach?
And thank you for speaking to that, because I want to name that I am a survivor of multiple violent crimes, not just grief, but multiple violent crimes that many people would choose to take their life from. And honestly, that is why I feel I am here, is to show and to support people to know that there is still a way back to the body, to safety and presence, and to joy. And, my deepest ways in, it's at the moment, I really believe that we need to use all of our tools. It's not just one. It's not just one way. That being said, one of the ways that's most often missed is actually learning not only to be in the body with, like I trained in somatic experiencing, which was fantastic. It offered a lot of things, trained in other somatic techniques. And yet the piece that was missing for me often was finding joy again. And dance and breath both could open those portals in ways that nothing else could. And not just dance to get a right move, performance, nothing like that. I mean, to really get in our bodies and move and feel and breathe, whether it's macro movements or micro movements, in a supportive, safe environment with someone who knows how to work with you. That experience for me has brought back so much memory, intuition, ability to feel in my body, ability to know how not to injure myself, whether that be physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, psychological, because we have a roadmap in there. But so many of us, when we are traumatized or injured, we leave. We have to, because it's too painful to stay. And so to know that there is a road back, it's different for everyone, the spirals in that, but there are many ways in still.
That's wonderful to know that there are many ways to utilize your own body through movements to find that happiness or joy within you, right? One of the areas that I've mostly seen my own clients also struggle through is the severity of shame or humiliation that they've gone through, which includes whatever abuse, you name it, which has impacted their minds. How do you think they can actually overcome those issues through this moment that you're talking about?
I think so. The shame goes really deep. Sometimes survivors literally block out experiences because it's too painful to remember. And some of those memories are in the body, and they may not be, it might not even be healthy for someone to go over and think about those or talk about those all the time. They might try that in therapy. It might be useful for a little bit, but it can also re-trigger trauma after trauma. When we move our bodies or when we breathe with our bodies have a natural healing system all of their own that wants to release it. So when we just give permission to grieve and not just have to follow every little molecule or micro moment to know what's coming out, it comes out as it needs to, whether so that can help with shame. The other thing is safe space. Sometimes people go to big, and I've taught these too, and they're wonderful. There's big group classes, there's retreats, there's big stuff, and then there's small stuff. And we need to know, where do we feel safe? Finding safe space within ourselves is the first step. And then finding, or the second, sometimes it takes a safe other to help us feel that space as well. And we do need to give voice. So I wish I could say it's just one way, but shame is a key. And the great thing about both breath and body is it releases it without necessarily having to recognize it within every second.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I would love to know from you, how is the breath and the movement connected to our mind? I want
Yes.
you to share this wisdom, if you can, with the listeners to help them understand the strong connection where you can train your mind through your breath and movement.
So our minds literally have to cut off when we have painful things happen. We literally hold our breath. we don't breathe. You'll notice, like, just even in a small situation, if you're tense or you're fearful, your breath gets really shallow, right? You stop breathing. So our bodies tighten and clench. Sometimes certain parts of our bodies where we've been violated or hurt literally have, muscular memory, cellular memory, where they're clenching. There is no breath in there. There is no oxygen. It becomes frozen. And so we can invite our minds, with our minds, to bring breath at the pace that's needed and comfortable, and movement at the pace that's accepted into those places. We can allow our minds, which are such powerful creators, to bring in as much, beautiful visualization, and release other visuals into those spots. So, and that's not just play, it's actually incredibly powerful. You can take a really bad trauma scene and work with breath and movement and a visual that brings a client or a person pleasure or safety, and literally breathe and move those things into those spots as you're kind of working with them, and it can transform things. So we're working at multiple levels.
Wow, wow. So you're saying that anyone who's having that trauma, they can actually utilize their breath and take it to that direction where they sense it in their body, and then express it through the movement and release it externally, right? So you're allowing that to let go. That is what you're talking about, right, Jacia?
Right. So that is one way to do it. Right. And the other thing is breath helps us get present.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when people are spiraling and they're in trauma, they're in fear, and in fear is a story that something's happening that actually isn't. Because right now, there's nothing happening right here, right? I mean, I can have all these stories going on, but if we just sit still, we're safe and we're here together in this moment. So helping yourself, a client, whoever needs to get present in the moment with their breath will literally relax the body that's become tense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can come into like full on pain. There's, people with chronic pain and things that become almost dis-ease, literally physical dis-ease in the body because of the lack of attention and the story going underground.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
It's
the
where it's at.
stories are the main culprits for that to actually show up into disease in our bodies, right? I love
Yeah.
the connection that you brought in between the mind and body, and how it is actually simple to bring your breath, which means your awareness, to the present moment. And then that itself is helping you to transform, right? How would
Absolutely.
you say, for someone who's actually deep into their trauma, or into their deep negative thinking mode, what is something that they can do to cultivate this habit of bringing this awareness into the present moment? Because I've noticed a lot of my clients say this, that there are times when they can actually implement the tools that we offer them, and there are times when they completely get into that vicious cycle of their own negative thoughts, right? So for someone who's in that phase where they're not able to recognize immediately and get into that place of awareness, what would be a tip that you can offer them?
There's a lot of different tools that come to mind, but one that kind of I like to talk about, and I teach this in my movement classes a lot, is when your mind is in chaos and it's busy and it's in a story and it's panicked and it's mental, to actually turn that into a dance where you actually get more interested in moving that feeling through your body and making sounds like almost to just get it to the point where it's almost, you become aware that, oh, this is chaos right here. And you're not buying into the storyline. You're more interested in the movements and the energy. And you realize as you bounce back and forth and make noises that you literally can start to release the energy. It almost becomes humorous, but I'm not trying to minimize the trauma, but
No.
it's actually a really useful tip. So there's that kind of thing. And then there's the other simple kinds of things that I'm sure many of you have heard before, which is, practice like, what do you see in front of you? What do you smell? what
Mindfulness, yes.
can you feel? So using your senses, right? So those are kind of some standard responses, but with the movement or the breath, there's some very calming breath techniques that you can do as well that you can learn. But I think ultimately what you're asking is tricky, because when someone's caught in that spiral, what do they do? And I think when you work individually with someone as well, you find out what is their greatest way in to that question,
and there are different kinds of triggers which actually lead them into that vicious cycle, and that's what you're talking about, right? When you work with them individually, you can help them to find those triggers which actually take you to that past trauma or whatever that is making you get into this vicious circle. Or you can also use this technique that Jacia just said, which is like dancing in that crazy form, which makes you aware that you are in a chaotic mindset, but that's not wrong. It's not wrong.
Your body too, because once you get it out of your mind and you spread it everywhere, it becomes a dance that you can release through your body.
Exactly.
Because much to release through your mind. So you send it through your fingertips, you send it through your toes, you send it through your hips and your spine.
Yeah. I love that simplicity of that technique that you said. You just get up and dance in the craziest form, and don't worry about you being doing this a lot of times, because eventually you will also get to a place where you're completely aware. Okay, I don't have to dance.
Then you won't have to, you'll just want to.
Exactly. I love that, Jacia. Thank you so much for sharing that. In terms of the dance and movement and the connection of the breath, is there a way where a person who is actually resisting to change, is there something that can be done for such people? Because there are also people who are like, I love to suffer. I just love to suffer. I just want to be in that place. Don't disturb me. So what would you share to them?
That's so funny that you say it that way. Like, do you think they know they love to suffer?
I think they're comfortable with dwelling in their thoughts. I would call it.
Yeah, they're comfortable. I would agree, right? I've definitely experienced worked with people who have those challenges, and there is such a familiarity. It's comfortable, right? It's not comfortable, but it's what they know. It's how they know to exist. So, a lot of times it's about getting them to become present with you in the moment. It's about slowing it down and taking it outside of words and saying, can we make contact? Can we breathe together here? What do you need right now to know you're safe? Right here. Let's take a breath right here. And then if they're really attached to going over that story, to say, wow, that story is really important. Maybe you need to move that story out of your body. Maybe we need to just move that. Like, let's move with it until it is tired of talking. Let's breathe with that. Let's turn it into a breath pattern. What does that feel like? Because that'll open up, the breath pattern will then open up grief or open up rage or open up, and then you can move it further.
Yeah, because it's all suppressed and you're just letting that slowly open up is what you're saying, right? Yeah. Thank you for mentioning about that. Even if you're in that place where you have completely been sucked into that past and you haven't taken any efforts so far, there's still a chance to get out of that slowly using your breath and then eventually opening up through moments, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think absolutely there is. And I wish the path of trauma, I don't want to minimize or lighten it. It is we're talking, movement and breath can be used not just for trauma, but for anyone who's just like annoyed with life or too busy, it can just free up time. Right. So, but when we take it all the way to the heaviness of trauma, there is a deeper spiral of work that will have to have attention, and sometimes from various modalities. For me personally, this modality has been what's freed me up. I tried everything else during some very hard times in my life. And it was really the dance for me personally. And for me, because I breathe really hard during the dance, is that combination. If you're dancing and you're just kind of going like this, but you're thinking and you're not breathing, dance is going to do nothing for you. I'm talking about the really letting it through your body, because then the breath is with that. And then you are literally becoming present and releasing, whether you want to or not, all the stuff that's stuck.
Yeah. So I've definitely heard this part which you're just sharing, where there is a way to take care or train your mind when your body is sick, and the vice versa, which means that when you have a sickness or an illness, you can use your mind to get your body back to good condition. The same thing happens the other way around. When your mind is down or feeling upset or sad or whatever negative feelings it is going through, you can use your body to shift it, right?
Yeah. And are they all that separate, right? How do they work together? Yeah,
Yeah.
they
It's
work
like a
together.
dance. It's like a dance, as you just said.
It's like a dance, exactly.
Yeah.
Back in times, I'm sure you've heard that saying, when did you last stop dancing? When you go to a shaman, if you're ill, they would say, when did you last stop dancing? Or when did you last stop singing? And singing is very much the breath. But those would be the first two questions they would ask in the tribe.
Yeah.
Because that is so crucial to wellness.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned about singing, because I'm a singer myself and I love singing. And I have experienced what you're saying about, which is like the modulations of breath, regulating the breath through singing has a profound effect on your mental wellness or your emotions, right? Because different songs carry with them different emotions and can shift you to higher levels of if I may call, consciousness, if you are allowing your mind to elevate in that direction, right?
I 100% agree. And I love that you're a singer. It's funny. I would love to say I'm a singer. I'm like completely tone deaf, but I sing all the time. And like my son will be like, what are you doing? But if you watched me through a day, you might think I'm a little crazy, but I sing little songs to cheer myself up throughout my day all the time, because I've learned the power of nourishing sounds and what it does to the body and the breath and the spirit.
Right.
So I agree.
Yeah, completely. I'm a big advocate that singing is transformational, and these are the assets, as you said, right? Like dancing, singing, the breath, our own body, and our mind are the tools that takes you in the direction towards finding that soul that you said. I would love to know how would yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say about the mind. So when you talk about mind too, it's interesting because I think learning to help someone distinguish between your brain and the stories it's running versus a mindful mind, the one who's actually witnessing, and can make a real difference for clients as well.
Yeah. How do you think someone who is actually stuck in between can differentiate that?
I think it's sometimes it's asking if they've ever had a unique experience where they became aware, like that they were watching their thoughts and who was watching, or how did you notice that was this way? Just kind of helping them to start to notice who's watching.
Yeah. And being that observer and witnessing those thoughts and not identifying that you are those thoughts. They are just.
It's like the same with the body sensations, right? The same with the breath, watching it happen.
Yeah.
Are kind of openers for people.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love the way our conversation is going, Jacia. I'm very happy that you're talking about subjects which are very deeper, and you're making it easier for the listeners also to understand the strong connection that we're talking about here, and how there is a strong way to get out of your suffering, whatever it may be, by utilizing your own breath and your body through movements, right?
And the other piece that I want to add there, and thank you, is grounding. That when we know where the ground is, when we have our movements and our breath grounded into the now, that's when we become incredible channels of what our soul wants to embody. But when we're not grounded, when we're grounded back in the past, or we're anchored into some fantasy starship we've shot into the future, we can't really actually glow with what our soul wants us to be glowing with and growing with.
So beautiful. We can't actually glow or grow with what our soul wants to embody with, just because we have arrived at this place of the soul. Tell us more about a person who is just starting with all these practices. How can they uh, walk in this journey where they understand the part of the soul? Because it's not an easy subject for everyone, as far as I've heard.
Yeah, I try, like, when I work with people, not to focus too much as much as soul. I use soul because that word represents something. You know, when I was like, I think about 26, I had a dream that repeated. And it was like, tu almas call me, it was your soul, your soul. And I just had patience. I love letters from my soul being written to me in my dreams. So the soul became like it meant something to me. Now,
Yeah.
people have different ideas about what that means. And I'm not trying to put towards any religious belief or
Yeah.
spiritual belief with it, as much as that I think most people can feel like, even if you think of the word soul music, it's like that substance that you are meant to be, where you feel good, right? I mean, we can make it really spiritual and deep, or we can make it as simple as that. And I like to kind of bring it down to that when I have a client or a person who's like, what do you mean by soul? I'm like, when do you feel like you are in your groove? That's your soul place. You know, that's, you know, so you can bring it into that kind of simplistic level too.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in your own place or in that groove, you know that you are that soul. I love that. You made it so simple for someone who's like, what soul are you talking about? Yeah.
We're talking about Atman, or we're talking about,
Talking
yeah.
about the spirits who are like hanging out. Okay.
But I think, you know, as healers, as people who are helping the world, we, you know, for a long time, it was hard for me to talk to everybody because I was so out there with my ideas. And then it was about grounding and like just interacting with the people, all people, to start realizing there is a commonality with all of us, no matter what our beliefs are.
Yeah.
And finding that language is when we really start to pull towards us. They're like, I don't know exactly what she's, but I like it, and I'm going to go with that because I trust her.
Yeah. Yeah. It is something, if I may say, it's like underneath all these layers of your mind, which is shining through you, right? And that's what you said. Like when you are in your own self or in that groove, it is the time when your soul speaks through you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, embodying our soul means we hear our inner guidance, we hear our inner voices, and that is the greatest protector from trauma ever. And so for me, they just came hand in hand.
Wow. Wow. And that is something that we all can try to cultivate, is what you're saying, right? Where you
Yeah.
listen to that inner guidance and inner wisdom that speaks to you. And Jacia, what would you say is required to be done in order to be able to listen to that inner wisdom? Because we are all busy. A lot of people have their jobs, they have to take care of their kids, they have 101 reasons for not listening to this inner wisdom.
Yeah.
So how would
Well, I
you?
mean, one really simple suggestion, if someone really wants to do this, is just every day, you know, take 5 minutes and take out a pen and paper and ask yourself, what was one whisper or nudge I got from some inner information, some guidance that said, like, it might be as simple as like, you're getting a headache from drinking too much coffee. Or when you raise your voice to your kid like that, you feel bad. Take note. Or, you know, or you haven't had time to stop today. You need to breathe. Or you're overeating. Why are you doing that? All those little nudges, which might sound like nags at you at first, are actually someone trying to speak with you. So make room for the dialogue, and it becomes less attacking and more an invitation into, there's some wisdom knocking, trying to say, you know, slow down. You're moving too fast. I want to be with you. I want to be here with you. And a lot of times, we're running away. We're running out there, trying to get our needs met out there because we're taught out there is what's important, but it's really in here. And so taking more moments to plug in.
Yeah,
is
I love that. It's so true that it's the inner world that, when tapped in, allows you to function effectively in the outer world, right? I love that. Since we are getting closer to the end of the episode, and I'm so sad, I would love to have you back again here.
we have to.
I would love to continue this conversation, but I would like to know from you, what would be 3 tips that you can offer our listeners so that they can cultivate this inner wisdom that can take them into a brighter future or longer journeys? Yeah.
I would say if you're feeling alone, you're not alone. You're just potentially not listening to the one who needs you most. And that one is you. It's in there. And so really, anytime we're feeling alone, it's natural at times to feel lonely. And I'm not trying to make that wrong. We all have those moments, but to ask yourself, am I alone because I'm not listening to something that I need to honor? Like, is there something inside? So that's one tip, is in terms of that kind of thing. The other thing I would say is put on a song in every day that you love, just one song and dance. One song and dance every day. And then set a thing on your clock, no matter how busy you are, that goes every single time off for 5 minutes, the same time every day. And that's your 5-minute breathing break. And if you haven't consciously slowed down and breathed, make it a time where you're not in an appointment. Maybe it's on a lunch hour. Maybe it's like after your kids get home from school, whatever that is. Set that time and you go wherever you go, sit down on a tree, but outside, in your yard, or go into your bedroom and shut the door, whatever you need to do, and just take 5 minutes and slow down and breathe. 3 simple tips.
Awesome. Wonderful tips, which is like, are you actually alone? Do you have someone inside you waiting to offer you inner wisdom? And you just have to listen to it. The second thing is like, make it a practice to dance every day, even for a short period of time.
One song to something you like.
One song. Yeah,
One
whatever song it is, one song, and then set some time, at least 5 minutes, to take this time to breathe, right? And you're talking about
consciously
breathing. Consciously
breathe. Set everything aside. Put your hand on your belly and your heart and go in and out.
Yeah, I love that. Put your hands on your belly and on your heart, and then breathe in and breathe out. Love that.
Want to breathe in breathing in some peace, releasing tension. Just kind of feel that in and out pattern. 5 minutes. It's a reboot.
Wow.
That's one. There's many more. Got lots of kinds of courses and tips to offer people, and get them.
Yeah. Breathe in some peace and out the tension. As our listeners are listening here, I would encourage everyone to actually try this, as Jacia says. Jacia, do you want to just share that one more time?
With the breath or the dance?
Breath.
So go ahead and just find a safe spot, and you would go somewhere where you can be quiet, or if you wanted to put on a soft piece of music that made you feel peaceful, and put your hand on your belly, put your hand on your heart, and breathe in peace, whatever that means to you, peaceful thoughts, or just the feeling of peace, love, warmth, and breathe out tension, negative thinking, whatever that is. So kind of breathing in positive feeling, breathing out negativity. In breath, positive feeling, love, kindness, compassion. Out breath, resentment, tightness, holding on, those kinds of things. Just doing that in and out.
Thank you so much, Jacia. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'm so grateful, as I said before, to have you in our episode. And I look forward to talking to you again in another.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you, Rita. I enjoy you so much. What a pleasure for me. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.